Give me a good storytelling. Give me why I should care. And I feel like Impact Wrestling does a good job of that.
They say that pro wrestling is a universal language. At Sportskeeda Wrestling, our audience is widespread from the United States to the United Kingdom to India to Canada to Australia to Africa, everywhere else. But the man that I'm speaking to right now is the host of the Pehlwani Patakha, a show that airs to millions of homes in India through Eurosport. Loosely translated for our international audience, it means wrestling explosion. So, welcome to our channel, Wrestle Binge by Sportskeeda, Mr. Paul Virk. Uh, could you let us, our audience, because it is international in nature, could you tell them about Pehlwani Patakha?
Pehlwani Patakha is basically Impact Wrestling's way of telling the Indian audience that they have some great content, great wrestling, and mix with entertainment. Pehlwani Patakha is a 1 hour show on Eurosport, like you said, and we basically cover Impact weekly for Eurosport. So, me and Bhupinder Gujjar, who's also Indian, and he wrestles on Impact Wrestling. So me and him are host of Pehlwani Patakha. We cover it for 1 hour. We talk about it and we commentate. And what I'm now, trying to get the wrestlers involved on the show as well. So it feels like that not it's just not me and him. It's more other wrestlers getting involved. I know one wrestler in particular, Zicky Dice, wants to be on the show really badly. So I am trying to make that work for him.
Awesome, that would be very
Yeah.
exciting. Could you tell me about your Indian roots?
So I was born in India in 1997, and I am Sikh. So like I speak my first language is actually English because I was 5 years old when my parents took me to the States. We moved to San Francisco, California, and so my first language is English, but my second is Punjabi, and then Hindi, of course. I learned the Hindi language because my mom speaks Hindi not mostly, but like me and her shared a house with a lady that spoke Hindi. So I literally just picked up from there. Like I wouldn't say my Hindi's the best, but I think I make it work. Um, but yeah, and then I've been living in the States ever since. Every other year I come visit back home because my parents do live here. So yeah.
Awesome, man. And what is so special? What is so different about the Indian audience, in your opinion?
I feel like it's really different because we really get into it, if you know what I mean. Like for us, it is the characters. For us, we don't want to know anything about what's going on behind the scene. We want to know like, oh, Moose really hates Josh, or like, hey, Bully Ray, and like what's going on right now. Like, hey, Bully Ray is really a bad person. We don't like him. So I think us as the Indian audience, we really like to get into it instead of we don't worry about oh, what's like, do they like each other behind? No, we don't care about that. We just want to have a good story and good wrestling that we can talk about.
So I'm glad you mentioned that. I mean, do you think that adds to the experience, the fact that we don't know what is happening in the dirt sheets and we don't really care about work rate
Exactly.
and stuff like that? Right.
Right. Like here, my cousins, they've been wrestling fans like me, but uh, they, like they were asking me like, hey, how's the experience with Impact? And I'm like, oh, it's going great. And like they didn't ask me like, oh, who's this or who's that. They're like, dude, we were watching it last week, and like Bully Ray, bro, he's a bad man. And I'm like, yep. They don't. I think that's something like that we need more of in the States. Everybody's just too worried about like what's going on behind the scenes. Tell us more about that. I think like just like the Indian audience, me, I just like a good, like I want to get into it. I want to, when you go watch a movie and you, for those 2 hours, if it's a good movie, you get into it. You really are with the characters wherever they take you. If it's a bad movie, you want your money back. But with wrestling, it's the same thing. Give me a good storytelling. Give me why I should care, and I feel like Impact Wrestling does a good job of that.
So I was present, I think, in 2017 when Impact came to India.
Yes.
It was a pretty cool event. Do you think this particular show could lead to a repeat of that?
Definitely. That's something I'm also trying to push. Like since I'm new, I don't want to force things like, I don't want them to be like, oh, this new guy here, is trying to like do this. But I'm really trying to not only like with this show, I want one of the things I actually talked to Scott about was like, hey, what if we have our own YouTube channel, Impact India or something, where it's like, hey, for the Indian audience, maybe like if you want your stuff in Hindi translated or any other language, in India, because we have more than one language here. Something like that, where and then doing a live show back here, back home, definitely, because there's an audience for it. People will eat it if we come here. So definitely, I think it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when.
Awesome. That would be very exciting. And Scott Demore was a part of the Indian tour at that time, but
Yes,
he wasn't, the leader of Impact Wrestling at that time. So
exactly.
that'll be pretty cool to see him. So let's do a small kind of rapid fire round to find out more about you, the person.
Oh,
Is
let's
that
go.
cool
Let's
with
do
you?
it.
Let's do it. So what was your first wrestling memory?
My first memory was, I believe I was 5 years old, and um, I was watching cartoon. And here in India, I think they air pay-per-views for free. We don't
Right.
have to pay from, like at the States, I have to pay $60 to watch a show. I was 4 or 5 years old. I don't really remember. The first match was WrestleMania 19, Stone Cold versus The Rock, and I thought Stone Cold was the bad guy and The Rock was the good guy, even though they were, switched. And after that, I had no idea it was wrestling. I had no idea what this thing was, but I was hooked. They had me.
Awesome,
So,
man. But what was your first memory of watching TNA then?
oh, my first actually, I think it's most everybody's first is oh god, it's the cage where the guy is walking on the cage and he does
Right.
a Hurricane Rana. That was
Right.
my first memory, and I'm like, whoa, what is this? Like, and then once I got into it, I remember my first wrestler that I saw, and I was genuinely scared of, was Samoa Joe when he had the tattoos on his face and stuff. So I think that was my first memory of Samoa Joe converting Kurt Angle when Kurt Angle made his debut. After that, I was like, oh, this is good stuff. This is some next level stuff.
I think that was prime time Elix Skipper, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
The move, right? Yeah.
Yep.
So
Yep.
who was your childhood wrestling hero? The guy you wanted to emulate the most?
Oh, that's there's a lot, but mostly I think I had to be Kurt Angle. I just loved how he was no nonsense and just like, all about. I think at one point they called him the wrestling machine, like something, I uh something like I still go back and watch his matches from that era. Especially like when he first joined Impact Wrestling. I don't think you could have a single bad Kurt Angle match from that first year. There's never been a bad Kurt Angle match, but that first year when he first started with the company, it's just like he was a man with a mission, just to have bangers after good matches. So,
Absolutely. Who was your first pro wrestling crush?
oh god, first pro wrestling, I think it's got to be the Beautiful People.
Ah,
Every time they were on TV, I like many like others, we did not turn away, we did not turn it off. That anytime the Beautiful People were in the ring or backstage, my eyes were on TV.
amazing. So who would you say is the most athletic pro wrestler on Impact Wrestling right now?
Oh, there's a lot, but the most, I mean, oh god, Trey McGill's insane, incredibly insane, in a good way. I mean, one of my personal favorites right now is Speedball Mike Bailey. I think
Right.
he's gonna do great things in Impact Wrestling. I
Who
think
would you
between
say
them,
is
it's a toss up. It's a toss up between them.
who would you say is the strongest pro wrestler on Impact right now? And you can give me multiple names.
Strongest.
Yeah.
Oh, strongest. I think Black Taurus is pretty strong.
Right.
Just because he's in the X division, um, you know, but he's very strong and he can move and he can, Moose is pretty strong. Uh, Josh Alexander, I think at the top of the list, Josh Alexander, ridiculously strong.
My final question from this round: who is that one star you'd maybe like to see in Impact Wrestling?
One star, um, one star that I would like to see in Impact Wrestling. I feel like you can't just pick one. There's so many, out there. But to be honest, some deep down, I would love to see Kurt Angle come back and have one more run in Impact. Um, but if it's possible, maybe Bobby Lashley, because I think he really found himself in Impact Wrestling. The Lashley we see now, I think you don't have that if
Right.
the Lashley in Impact doesn't happen.
Right, and yeah, like he was the champion when Impact visited India the last time around.
Yes,
So
yes,
that was
yep.
pretty cool
And
as well.
plus, like the guy looks like $1,000,000, so definitely.
Awesome, man. So let's do this a little differently. Let me throw a
Yeah,
name out there, and you tell me the first thing that comes to mind when you
gotcha. Let's
think
do it.
about these stars. Okay, uh,
Gotcha.
Mahabali Shera.
Mahabali Shera, very like to the Indian audience, um, uh, a hero. Because when I first saw him, that's how I looked at him. Like, whoa, someone that looks like me. That's something. A word comes to mind for me. A hero when I first saw him.
Bully Ray.
Bully, just straight up bully. He's a bully.
Eddie Edwards.
Eddie Edwards, very smart. He's smart.
Josh Alexander.
Oh, best wrestler right now, hands down. In my opinion, I think he's pound for pound best wrestler.
Mickey James.
A legend. She's the coolest.
Moose.
Moose, scumbag, like he said on TV.
Rosemary.
Rosemary, creepy but in a good way.
And my final choice here is Bhupinder Gujjar. What do you think of him?
Bhupinder Gujjar, a friend, a best friend.
Awesome, man. So what is it about your chemistry with Bhupinder on the show that you think is so special?
I think the chemistry is what's like not in front of the camera, just outside or outside the Impact Wrestling, or just like the first conversation I had with him, we clicked like right away. He was like, "Yep, you're my choice." Like he had to pick a host, and the fact that he chose me when he could have chose anyone else, we clicked off right away. Like the first conversation I remember on the phone. And he's like, "Yep, you're my." We clicked off. Like the chemistry was there. We didn't even have to be on camera. I remember the first show we did. We both looked at each other and was like, "Well, we have something here." So, and plus, like he's kind of like my big brother. So I wrestle outside of Impact myself. So anytime I have advice or like I need advice, I go to him.
That is pretty cool, man. So what are some of your own pro wrestling goals?
My goals to somehow eventually wrestle in Impact Wrestling, obviously. But right now, like you said, I'm really trying to bring Impact to India, whether that's via YouTube or like more, just not the Pehlwani Patakha itself, just like everything, maybe more shows, maybe come here regularly, maybe make it a yearly thing where we go to India, something like that, and obviously to wrestle as well.
So when you get into the ring, I mean, I would say it's a matter of when and not if. Who would you say? Who would you want as your first opponent?
Oh, Bhupinder, definitely. That would be like a full circle. I came to Impact because of him, and then I get to wrestle him.
And would you want to represent India in that sense, or would you want? I mean, so many wrestlers who have competed in Impact Wrestling have gone for the traditional Indian thing. Would you
Yes.
want that to be your character, or would you want? Because I saw some of your work outside, and it's not so based in India, right? It's like
Yes.
yeah.
So there's a reason behind it because very in any wrestling company you see when there's an Indian wrestler, they gimmick him up.
Right.
They will, just to make it look like, yep, he's Indian, My thought process when I first started wrestling was like I kind of wanted to stay away from it because I'm like, hey, I'm Indian who just, but like I'm a wrestler first who just happens to be Indian. And then plus like I never had it in my mind where, oh, maybe I should start wearing a turban. Maybe I should wear, something that's like, oh, he's in. It's like kind of like I literally just had this conversation with Bhupinder like this week. It's like you're a wrestler who just happens to be Indian, and I want to represent my people, my country, like that. No, we don't have to. I don't have to wear a turban or something, like a dress or something where for people to identify like, oh yeah, he's Indian, because in everyday normal life here, you don't see people dress up like that, if you know what I mean. So exactly, I want them to like be like, especially now as the audience is doing with Bhupinder, relatable because he is who he is.
Absolutely,
So
man.
yeah, that's one of my like thought process, and even now, like I still believe it. If there in the future, if there's an idea where I'm like, oh, I could really go into that, yeah, definitely I'll look into it. But right now, I just kind of wanna, hey, I'm a wrestler, but I'm who just happens to be an Indian.
Perfect, perfect. So I did this with Eddie Edwards. I spoke to him
Yeah.
earlier this week, and we were promoting the Impact Plus app, where you can go
Yes.
to any point in Impact Wrestling's history and pick out a match that like is special to you as
Yes.
a fan. So if you could pick one such match, what would you pick?
I think it's the AJ Styles, Samoa Joe, and
That's
Christopher
yeah.
Daniels, the triple threat, the classic three-way. I think between, I forgot what pay-per-view it was, but I remember I seen that match at least 3 times, and I love it every time. That's like my go-to triple threat, even for my own stuff when I wrestle. And if I'm in a three-way, a lot of the stuff in a three-way, it's inspired from that match.
So cool, man. So finally, I mean, you addressed the international audience. Why
Yeah.
should our Indian audience tune into Eurosport and catch the show?
I think we're Impact Wrestling on Eurosport is offering something different that not maybe another company's not offering or something. But I think we have a mix of sports, and then like there's entertainment in there, and then it's like how I say it on the show itself while I commentate. It's something like there's something for everyone. If you're a kid watching, you're gonna love Joe Hendry because he's I love his song, right? But then if you're into the serious, like I want some drama. You got that with Bully Ray and Josh. And our tag division's always on fire. Our knockouts division, I feel like it's the best in the country or in the world, not even in the country. So there's something for everyone.
Perfect.
Like 40% of the show, there's at least other 60 that you might like.
Perfect. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
And I hope that the prediction you made at the start of the interview that Impact
Hmm.
Wrestling will come to India comes true. So looking forward to
Yes,
that.
definitely. Yes.
Fingers crossed.
Thank you.
Cheers, man.